demo with the links that I provided at the final slide of this presentation. Before going through each enumerator, I like to talk about dynamism in SSIS as well. In SQL Server integration services, you can have dynamism with three main components. The first one is variables and also parameters. With variables, you can store values into package variables, or with parameters, you can pass values between packages. There is an expression language. Expression is a specific language for SQL Server integration services. There are components in data flow like derived column, conditional split transformation that use that expression language, and also some other transformation. In control flow also there are tasks like expression tasks, which are actually in use for getting the result of an expression into a variable. And in precedence constraints, you can also use expression to set in which condition which expression leads you to go through the second task or third task. And expression property. Expression property is a property in most of the tasks and components in SSIS that provides ability to loop through, provides ability to set the property values dynamically. So in samples and demos, I will show you how to use these three main things to actually make your package dynamic. The first enumerator is Foreach Loop File Enumerator. This provides ability to loop through files of directory. This is one of the most common in use enumerator. And you can also set mask on this. You can say that, for example, I just concerned for files that start with customer and end with CSV extension, or you can say star point star, which means all files. You can say that you want to fetch fully qualified path or just file name or file name with extension. You can also say that you want to traverse subfolder or for the first demo, I will show you this scenario. Assume that we have multiple CSV files in source folder. Each CSV file contains a number of records per customer. We want to provide a loop structure to loop through each file, load data from that file into the customer table into our database, and then move that CSV file into archive folder and log an entry to source file log, which is a table that logs the file name and load data. Okay, I start from here. I show you how our source files look like. This is a sample of our source file. We have, as you can see here, we have some columns, headers, and values are comma delimited, and also we have text qualifier, which is double quote. And this is the destination table, customer table, which has same columns, just within another column, which is source file, which we want to load that source file here. And also we have a source file like table. This table has just an ID, source file ID, which is auto-generated, source file, which is name of the source file, and load data. And I start from this package. First of all, I want to create a variable for source directory. I set data type of this as string. Then I create another variable for file name as string, and file path variable as string as well. Now I show you how we will use this variable, and the source directory variable, I set this value here. Okay, we are using for each loop container, so I put a for each loop container here. I rename it to loop through CSV files. When I double click here in the collection tab is where actually we can set the enumerator type. Here you can see all 7 types of enumerator. I set the default for each loop file enumerator. The first things to set in enumerator configuration is the folder, source folder. So I choose source folder as or source file folder. I'm only interested in those files that has CSV extension. Right now there is no other files here, just 3 files with CSV extensions, but in future there might be more files with different extensions, so I'm just interested in this one. And I just want to retrieve name and extension. I have the source directory name and I can create the full file path based on that, and on the other hand I also need just file name and extension to be entered in the log table, and I do not want to traverse subfolder. Then in the variable mapping, here variable mapping is where actually we set each iteration's values into package variables. For example, in each iteration we will work with a specific file and we want to load that file into a variable. So here I choose file name variable and index is 0, as you can see, because this type of enumerator for each file enumerator only provides 1 column in the result set, and that column can be file name or extension or fully qualified name. So this index means actually the column name. Because we have just 1 column, this sets to 0, which is the first column. Now here, before doing the data flow, I want to fetch the full path of the file. I use an expression to generate full path. Here I say that file path is equal to source directory plus double backslash. I use double backslash because single backslash is a reserved word, and file name. Here I can also evaluate expression because only source directory variable has value and file name doesn't have any value, so this only solves this value as here, and you can see that double backslash here resolved to just single backslash. This expression builder the GUI is quite good. You have access to all variables and package system variables and parameters here, and also you have expression functions, operators, all this information here. You can provide, you can create expressions as you want. Okay, this is the generate full path, and after that I want to use a data flow task to load customer data into DB, and I want to execute this after successful execution of the first task. Here I use a flat file source because our source files are CSV files. I create a new connection. The first connection should be set up manually and statically to just one of those files. So I create a file connection to one of these files, for example, to first CSV file. This is delimited text qualifier. I use double quote here, and column names in the first data row and columns. This is how columns looks like. I'm not going to talk about for file flat file connection manager because it's out of our time to talk about this, and this is how actually our output columns look like. Here I also choose that retain null values from the source as null values in the data flow. And so this is actually the column data. After that I want to use a derived column to just add the file name, because in the customer table we want source file. So here I use this derived column. Derived column is for creating new columns based on an expression. So I use file name here, and I name derived column as source file. So this will create a new column with this expression. As you can see right now, the length of this expression is 0 because this expression doesn't have any value right now, but it will be resolved in the runtime. So as this length will not change in the runtime, I will use typecast functions here to set the data type and length based on expression. So I convert this to a string column with the length of 50 and code page I use default 1252. Okay, so you can see that the length and data type changed. And the final step is to use an OLEDB destination. And here I create a connection to my sample database and the table, which is customer table. I view existing data. There is no existing data. In the mapping tab, I can see that all columns mapped because names are all same. So this is how actually I managed to set the data flow. And one important step here is that we should we set that connection statically. Now we should set that connection based dynamic based on the file path variable value generated here. So I choose that flat file connection manager. I go to properties windows, and here in properties window you can see that there is an expression property. This expression property is a name value property. Here you can see most of the properties of that specific component. For example, for this component we can see the connection string, and I can say that I want to set this connection string with this expression. And the expression here can be, again, any expression. I use file path here. It doesn't have any value right now because it will be resolved dynamically. So this means that the connection string property of this connection manager will be set based on this expression, which is file path expression. And this will happen in runtime. So I hit that as OK. And when I do this change, you can see here a small fx in icon in the left-hand side of that component, which means that this component has something, some property that sets with expression. When you set these values with expression, you can delay the validation because the validation of SSIS by default happens in compile time. So if this happens in compile time, then because we do not have a value in file path variable, this will fail. So I set delay validation of this to true. And also I do same for this data flow task. So here you can see that validation, delay validation set to true. So this is the part that we want to load data into the database. After that, we want to archive that file. I use a file system task. I name this file system task as archive file. I set operation as move file or source path coming from a variable, and that variable is the file path variable. The destination path is not variable. This is specific directory, which I can create a connection to existing folder. That folder exists in here, archive folder. And override destination, yes. When I click OK, you can see here that this again failed that validation because the file path is empty. So again, I choose that component and set delay validation to true. And the final step is to log an entry into our log table. I use an execute SQL task. I name this as log. and here I create a connection to our sample database, and here I want to put an insert statement. I create that insert statement based on this auto-generated statement here. This is insert command. I want to insert source file name here. I use question mark. Those who worked with execute SQL task know that the question mark is parameter marker for OLEDB connection, so I use that one, and get date. I use this one for getting the system time as well. So I copy that. And paste it here. So this question mark is a parameter marker, and I should set a parameter in the parameter mapping tab as well. So I add a parameter here, or income parameter, input parameter is the file name, not the file path, because we want to just set the file name and extension there. Data type of this is varchar, and parameter name here should be 0 because we are using the OLEDB connection, and parameter marker for OLEDB connection is question mark. Parameter name is index base, start with 0. So this is actually how our package look like, and I start execution of this. Here you can see that this loop structure starts, and in each iteration it loops through tasks and loops through files, and then execute this task to this 3 tasks to load data. Here you can see that the first, in the execution result, the first customer one CSV loaded, the second one is loaded, and the third one is also loaded. So here it shows how it worked, and you can see that there is no more files in source files folder, and files already moved to archive folder. And also in the customer table, I can select star from customer, and here you can see that we have 80,000 records, and each record has values loaded from the files with the source file that populated based on the source files, customer 2, customer 3, CSV. And the final part is the source file log. Here shows us that each customer file loaded in each time, source file and load date. So this was an example of working with file enumerator. The other enumerator is from variable enumerator. From variable enumerator is a useful enumerator when you want to load an array, loop through an array. That array can be loaded from a script component based on an array list, or based on array, any kind of object, not any kind, but many kinds of object collections in .NET scripts can be loaded into an object type variable. It should be object type variable, and then you can loop through that object type variable. For example, as a sample, I'm not showing this as a demo here, but you can download the video for this sample in the link at the end of the slides. Assume that there are sales data CSV files coming from a source directory. We want to have a loop structure to just pick those files that are not exist in the archive folder. This is a little bit different from our example that we had in previous demo, because in that demo we just want to look through all files in that directory, but here we want to look through only those files that are not exist in the archive folder. So we can use a script task to get just the new files and load them into an array list, and then look through that array list based on the from variable enumerator with the object type. This is a very good scenario for using from variable when you can do some part of your task in .NET script. Sometimes you can use a .NET script to remove list of SSIS tasks just with few lines of .NET script, and then you can have a structure like from variable enumerator. The next enumerator is ADO.NET Schema Roset Enumerator. This is very good enumerator to loop through a schema and metadata structures of the data source. This can be used for looping through all tables of the specific database, or looping through a specific schema, or looping through views, all system objects. And this list of items can be filtered. You can say that you just interest in tables that has sales schema. You just interest in columns that has this name. And for SQL Server, the information schema views actually will be used for this. Here you can see that some list of this information schema. For example, you can loop through columns, you can loop through schemas, indexes, views, tables, or table info. Any of these can be used for looping through.
Reza, do you mind if I interrupt for
Yes.
a second? We have a couple of
Yes.
questions here, if it's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, so there's one question from Frank. He's asking, how can we use the for each loop to migrate a whole set of databases in another server?
Okay, this actually depends on the database type. For example, if this is SQL Server database, you can use this ADO.NET Schema Roset Enumerator, as I'm talking about right now. This can be used to get all components, all actually tables, objects, views from the source database, and then you can loop through each table and then create that table structure comment, and then execute that in the destination server, and then also transfer data in another task as well. So ADO.NET Schema Roset Enumerator can be used for this one, and also SMO, which I will talk about in the future.
Okay, that sounds good. We also have another question from earlier on. I thought I might as well just pop it up now.
Yes.
The question is, do you prefer OLEDB connection or ADO connection, and why is that?
These two connections is actually quite similar. The difference is most on the on two actually items. The first one is the data source or data destination, because some data source and some data destination does not provide a connection for ADO.NET or OLEDB, so you might actually will forced to use only one of these, not both of those. For example, SQL Server, you can use OLEDB and ADO.NET together, but for example, in MySQL, you cannot use OLEDB, so you should use ADO.NET or ODBC. And the other thing is that the tasks and component in the data flow, in the control flow as well. For example, some tasks like lookup component only works with OLEDB, and also cache connections as well. So you can use combination of these two. But some tasks only use with ADO.NET connection. And for those, you just need to use ADO.NET. So this actually, the answer to this question is actually depends on your data source, your data destination, and what task and component you want to use.
Okay, great. I think that's all the questions for now. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And ADO.NET Schema Roset Enumerator, a sample for this can be, as I said in answering this question, for example, we want to loop through all AdventureWorks 2012 database tables, and just for those tables that are in sales schema, we can filter that, and then export data from each table into a CSV file. Please mention that each table has different structure. So when we have different structure, different column structure, we cannot use data flow. We should use another way to exporting this information. BCP is a command for exporting data from SQL Server to CSV. So what we can do is to have a for each loop with ADO.NET Schema Row Set Enumerator filtered for sales schema under AdventureWorks 2012 database, and then we will have an expression task to generate BCP command to generate the CSV files, and then an execute SQL task to run that BCP command. Again, you can download the sample at the links at the end of the slides. Okay, the next considerations about this ADO.NET schema. It is best scenario when you want to loop through schema and metadata. For example, looping through tables, looking through objects of the source database. The output for each schema might be different. For example, for tables, for list of tables, for list of views, this depends on which information schema you want to use. And loop can be also narrowed with using the filters in schema views. The next enumerator is for each not list enumerator. Not list enumerator is good for looping through XML content. And XML content actually contains from XML elements, nodes, and attributes. And XML input can be in different types. For example, it can be as a direct input, as a string, which can be which will be an static loop. It can be a file connection, so it will be a connection to an XML file exists somewhere. So each time the file changes, the loop structure will change. It will be kind of configurable loop, and variable, which makes it dynamic loop, because each time variable values change, the loop also changes. For working with not list enumerator, one of the most important things is that you should be familiar with XPath. What is XPath? XPath is standard query language to query XML content. For example, this is a global language, so this doesn't matter which tools or which component you are using or which language you are using. You can use XPath everywhere. And this is a XML content sample. For example, we have a bookstore node here. Inside the bookstore, we have multiple books. Each book has an attribute which is category. Then there are some elements, title, author, year, and price. And we can query this information based on the XPath. For example, for list of all books, we can say /bookstore/book. This will provide all books. If we want to get title of a specific book, for example, /bookstore/book in the bracket 1 and /title. This means that we are just interested in the title of this specific book. Index sometimes start with 0, sometimes start with 1. This depends on the XML version. You can set the XML version in your XPath query as well. And author of, for example, to get author of book with price greater than 30, we can put a condition here in the bracket that price is greater than 30, and then we want to fetch the author. We can do many things with the XPath. XPath is not a hard language to work with. It's very easy. You can see that these strings are very easy. You can find more about XPath queries and XML as well in W3 School's website. I'm using just a sample here to show you, but you need to be more familiar with XPath. And we have 4 enumeration types for XPath to work with not list enumerator. The first one is Navigator, which is based on .NET XPath Navigator node. We will loop through result of XPath query and provide list of nodes. Not text, we can use again that XPath query, but the result will be type of string, not the node type of text. And element collection, we use an XPath, which will be actually outer XPath, for looping through elements, and then inside each element we use another XPath, which is inner XPath, and we fetch data based on that. I used the last one for showing you a demo here right now. And before going to that demo, consideration about XPath and node list enumerator is that you can empower that with web service task, and you should also be professional in XPath, and it's better to be more professional because as you gain more profession, you will have more ability to work with this enumerator. As a demo here, I use this scenario. There are a list of teams that played in FIFA World Cup 2010. I fetch those information from a web service. Then I use a loop structure to loop through each team name, and then I will call another web service. The second web service asks for a team name as an input variable and then provide full description of that team, full details info of that team. So, and as a result, we want to generate the result of second web service and second web method and put the result into an XML file which named based on the team, for example, Brazil.xml. So I start to show you that sample here. I create another SSIS package. I use a web service task. Before using that web service task, I want to show you that web service. xmethods.net provides some web services. For example, the one that I'm interested is this FIFA World Cup 2010. I use this WSDL link. This is web service definition language URL that I can use this one to connect the web service. So in the web service task, I should create a HTTP connection. Here I create an HTTP connection to that server, and I test the connection. I should download that web service definition file into somewhere here, so I create a file for that. I create an empty file, FIFA 2010.wsdl. This is just an empty file. Now when I click on this, I can say that overwrite that file as true and download WSDL. This will download web service definition, as you can see, into the file. Now, when the WSDL definition download, the WSDL definition is just the definition of the web service. After downloading that, I can go to the input. I can see the service. There's only one service for this web service, which is info, and there are different methods. Here you can see that, for example, goal scored, red card total, all games, full team info, but this full team info accepts the team name, so I use teams. Teams returns an array of teams. And the output, I want to put the output in the variable, but before doing that, I want to show you how the output of this looks like. So I go to here, I create the output file, and I name this as teams.xml. I just execute this. And this file actually generated that teams.xml. I can view that file. And here you can see that this is an XML structured file. This file has a main node, which is array of team info. In that, there are different team info nodes. In each team info, there are elements like ID, name, country flag, and other information. The one that we are interested in is the team name. So we want to loop through all team info nodes here and fetch the team name. So what I do here is using an XPath query to loop through teams, and then another to get the name of each team. So here I change the result to be in a variable. I just used that file to show you how this works. I name that variable as teams and as object type variable. Sorry, let me create a variable here. Teams. Okay, let me create another list of teams object type. Okay, and here I choose output to a variable, and I choose that list of teams variable here. So after that, I use a Foreach loop container. I rename this as get list of teams, and this one I rename this as loop through teams. Here I go to collection tab, I choose not list enumerator. When I choose not list enumerator, you can see that enumerator configuration changes. Each enumerator has different configuration. I use document source type as a variable, and our source variable is list of teams. And then I use enumerator type as element collection, and the XPath string that I use here is the slash. Then I use the main, the root element slash star. This means that everything under this element. And then in the inner element type, I'm just interested in the node text. So inner node text means this text. So I'm just interested in this, and I want to fetch everything. So the inner XML, I just put in a star. A star means everything. Now in the variable mapping, I can set those values into variable. First, I use an ID variable. Secondly, I use another variable. I name is a team name. ID is first, team name is second, because here you can see that ID is first, team name is second. And I choose OK. Before passing this as a parameter to second web service task, I use an expression task here to generate the full path of the output file. I name it as full path as string, and also directory path string variable here. So what I want to do is to load the data files into this directory. So I copy that directory into directory path, and I create file path variable based on that. So here in this expression, I set the full path based on directory path plus double backslash plus team name plus .xml. And here you can see that how it will look like, because team name is empty right now, so the result is like this. And after that, I use the second web service task. In the second web service task, I use same HTML connection because web service is same. So same WSTL file. I do not want to download it again. I go to input tab. I choose same service, but the method this time is different. I use full team info method. And here you can see that this accepts the team name as a parameter. I can set the parameter value here directly, statically, or I can set that with a variable. So I choose the variable here, and I get the value of that variable from the team name. So team name will be the value of that variable, and the output file, I want to generate a file for the output. So I choose create file, and I just say that, for example, output.xml. So this will create that output.xml, but this output file should be dynamic. So I go to properties of this and find the expression again here. To set the file connection, I choose connection property, and I set that to full path variable here. So this means that this full path will be the file, and I set the delay valuation for this to true, and also for the web service task to true as well. So now I run this to see how it works. So here you can see that this generate the list of teams and then loop through each teams, and you can see that each team will generate an XML output. So here you can see that different teams generates different output, and I can see that each team has different details. For example, in these details we have list of goalkeepers, defenders, midfielder, and forwards. So here you can see that all teams will be generated. So as you've seen here, a simple using of XPath query combination with web service task and not list enumerator provided a very good way of doing this task, which seemed to be hard, but it's very simple. Then we can use another data flow task to load each data to a database table as well if we want. Okay. For each item enumerator. For the item enumerator, this item enumerator provides ability to create a data table with different columns. Each column can have different data types, and we can have data rows in that columns and use that as a data table. So it's kind of a static data table. For example, as a sample, we can assume that we have 2 database servers for employee info. Each of those has different actually database name, and table names are different, so we can create a data set for that and enter those values there, and then loop through those different tables and different columns and loop through those and fetch information from those into a single database. So this is good for arrays with multiple columns if you want to use, and the definition will be in the package itself. And for each ADO enumerator, is the most useful type of enumerator. This is one of the most common in use. You can loop through array of actually a data table that loaded from a specific source, and this data can be loaded into an object type variable based on an execute SQL task with full result set, or within the data flow task with record set destination to load data into the object variable. Advantage of ADO enumerator is that the data table can be loaded from any kind of the source, from Excel file, from Oracle, DB2, SQL Server, flat file, and you can use bunch of transformation in data flow, because in data flow we have many transformations, so you can transfer data as you want and then load it into the object variable. And loop structure will be dynamic, because when the source table, source data is changed or changed through transformation, then the loop, the output data will be changed. So as a sample for this, we can use ADO enumerator to implement a simple package execution framework. That execution simple framework will be, for example, a package that has a list of name of each a table that has name of each package and execution order and enable disable tag. Then you can use a loop structure to get list of those packages based on execution order and only those that are enabled, and then loop through those, execute them one by one, and then log an entry into like table. I'm not sure if we have time to go through this demo as well. Do we have time for doing that, Julie?
Minutes.
Okay, just continue. You can download this. Yep, okay.
And we don't have any more questions so far, so if you want to continue, then you can.
Okay, I continue to finish the slides. If we have time, I go through this demo as well.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so SMO enumerator. SMO stands for SQL Server Management Objects, and this is a list of .NET libraries for managing SQL Server objects and for SQL Server management objects. And examples of this can be, for example, looping through SQL Server jobs, logins, and for example, looping through linked server, looping through tables. So some part of this information is equal to what provided in ADO.NET Schema row set enumerator as well. So this is another methods of doing that. As a sample for this, we can assume that there are two database servers for customer info, for example, North Island and South Island, and we have created two linked server for each of these, and now we want to loop through linked servers, not just those two, loop through all linked server, because, for example, there might be another linked server added after a few months as well. So we want to loop through all of those and load customer data into the customer info table. So we can use this structure, this SMO enumerator for this. Before going through that, I just want to show you that sample for ADO.NET for ADO enumerator. So here is our sample packages. For example, we have different packages here. Each package do specific things, and here we have package execution config. In this table we have package names, execution order, and enable disable. And I want to select, for this I want to just select package from this database where enable is 1, where enable is 1, order by execution order. So this will actually generate the output. So I use this, and I come back here, I create a package here. This can be something like my master package. Then I use a data flow task. Before doing that, I create an object variable. I name this as packages, object type. Into that data flow task, I connect to the source, the OLEDB source. I create a connection to that sample database, and I use SQL command. I use same same command here, and the result will be only package name. I use that with a record set destination. I can apply transformation if I want as well. So in the record set destination, I say our output variable is packages, which is object type variable, and we want to load just the package name, package column. So as a result, this will be loaded into that object variable. Then I can use a for loop container here. In this for loop container, I set collection as ADO enumerator. When I choose ADO, I can choose the object variable here, and as this is working with ADO.NET schema, ADO.NET data sets, I can choose that I want to get the rows in the first table, or all tables, or rows in all tables. So I just choose the first one, rows in the first table, and in the variable mapping, here I create a new variable. I name this variable as package name. So the package name will be loaded here. Package name 1. Okay, this will be loaded here. If I had multiple columns, I will add those columns here as well. And after that, sorry, I use an expression task. Not expression task, we want to actually execute the child package, so I use execute package task. Inside this execute package task, I use project reference, which is new in 2012. I set it to one of the packages for now. And then in expression, here you can see that there is an expression property here as well. Here I set the expression which we want to set package name property based on the expression. Expression is package name plus dot DTSX. So this will generate the package name right now. And you can see that fx here and the red icon here is because this wants to do validation right now, so I delay the validation. So this will execute those packages. I can put a log entry here as well to the log table. So I create a connection. I want to put log entry into this table, so I create an insert command here. I get the package name from variable and the date. I use this here, and the parameter mapping, I map input parameter with the package name variable. Data type of this is varchar and parameter name is 0. So this is how actually I using this to create a master package. As you can see, that master package ran SMO first and then item package next, and this shows how this works. And here now I can see that these packages run one by one. So this is a very simple execution framework based on an ADO enumerator. We can do much more with that ADO enumerator as well. As a summary, in this session, you've learned how to use Foreach Loop Enumerator to empower your ETL design, to reduce redundant works, to reduce maintenance and support costs, to improve consistency and standardization. And always you should be actually aware of using expressions and variables to create dynamism as well. For those samples that I didn't talk about, there are links here to my blog entries, and there are tutorial videos for each sample. You can use them and download them. So, any question?
Hi, Raisa. So far, there's no more question. I do have a couple of requests about the slide deck, so I would obtain a copy from you and post it online. The session has been recorded, and it is, we had a bit of a technical difficulty at the beginning, so I think we lost probably around 5 minutes of the presentation, but the main content should still be there. So it would be great if we can get a copy of your slide deck too. That way people can go to the links that you have provided. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, I will email that in. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. We
and
also... Sorry, yep, go ahead.
Thanks for attending in this. Just that. Okay. Julie, I'm passing to you.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. So we have another question.